The billionaire CEO's genius son. Allergic to all gold diggers, until his son called her mommy again. And she was just a poor babysitter. But the CEO's genius son wouldn't let anyone near her. Not even his father. "Don't you dare send her away, Daddy. She's my mom." The room froze. Because 5 years ago, the CEO did lose the love of his life. But he never imagined she'd come back like this. Now, a child's heart holds a secret, and a billionaire father must choose. And truth or pride, the woman he thought he'd lost forever. Ethan Montgomery didn't believe in second chances. Not in business, not in love, and certainly not when it came to family. At 38, he was the CEO of Montgomery Enterprises, a global empire built on precision, power, and ruthless decisions. Every corner office in Manhattan knew his name. Every headline whispered about the man with the steel heart, the one who never looked back. But all the wealth in the world hadn't prepared him for this moment. A Monday morning, sharp as any other, began with the usual hum of city life. Ethan's penthouse towered above the skyline, glass walls catching the early light like a mirror to the heavens. He stood there, coffee in hand, mind already racing through numbers, deals, meetings. Below him, the world moved fast, hungry, relentless. Just the way he liked it. Until... "Sir, there's an issue with Bon." His assistant's voice broke through the silence, hesitant. Ethan frowned, turning. "What now?" "Your son refuses to meet his new tutor. Again." His 5-year-old son, the only person on earth who dared to challenge him without fear. Ethan's chest tightened in that familiar, frustrating way. Bond was brilliant, too brilliant. Diagnosed as gifted before he could walk, the boy had inherited Ethan's sharp mind and his late mother's fierce heart. But unlike Ethan, Bond didn't believe in rules, or nannies, or gold-digging women who tried too hard to be part of their world. He only wanted one thing. Her. And she was gone. Ethan's jaw clenched. He didn't have time for tantrums, not today. The board was breathing down his neck. The stock was fluctuating after last quarter's announcement. Investors wanted stability. His father wanted him married again. But Bon, he wanted his mother. The problem was, Ethan wasn't sure she ever truly existed. He remembered the woman who had smiled at him once in a garden, barefoot, holding sunflowers. He remembered laughter in the kitchen, music in the middle of the night, the way she used to calm Bon's cries with just a hum. But those were ghosts now. She had left them when Bon was still a baby, and no amount of searching had brought her back. He had told himself she didn't love them. She didn't want them. Until today. Downstairs, in the private wing of the mansion, Bon sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes fixed on the door. His dark hair fell over his eyes, but he didn't move to push it away. His tiny hands clutched a toy computer, one he had dismantled and rebuilt more times than anyone could count. Next to him, a woman stood nervously. She wasn't like the others. Her clothes were plain, her eyes downcast. She didn't wear heavy perfume or designer shoes. In fact, she looked almost out of place in the grand hallway, surrounded by marble floors and priceless art. "Miss Han," the housekeeper said gently, "the young master is... particular." "I understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Bond glanced up, studying her with suspicion. "You're the new babysitter?" She nodded. "I don't need one." "I know," she said softly, kneeling to his level, "but maybe you need a friend." He blinked. No one had ever said that. His tiny lips pursed, and he shoved the toy at her. "Fix it." She took it, fingers trembling, and somehow, in that moment, something familiar flickered behind Bond's eyes. Something he hadn't felt in years. Comfort. Upstairs, Ethan watched from the surveillance screen, a strange heat spreading in his chest. The woman? There was something about her. The curve of her face, the softness in her voice, it tugged at something deep, something buried. "Who hired her?" he snapped. "Her file came from the agency you approved, sir," the assistant replied quickly. She passed all the checks. Ethan narrowed his eyes. He didn't like unknowns, especially not around Bon. "Bring me her file," he ordered. But before the assistant could leave, another voice crackled through the intercom. "Sir, the boy has accepted her. He hugged her." Ethan froze. That boy didn't hug anyone. Later that evening, the house was unusually quiet. Bon had gone to bed without protest, and Ethan found himself standing outside the guest quarters, staring at the door. Why did she seem so familiar? Why now? With a sharp breath, he turned away, unwilling to fall into memories. The past didn't matter. What mattered was control. And this woman, this stranger, was suddenly too close. But what Ethan didn't know was that she wasn't a stranger. 5 years ago, she had been the woman he loved. 5 years ago, she had carried his child. 5 years ago, she had been forced to walk away, to save them all. And now she was back. Not to reclaim him, not to fight, but because a little boy needed her. And because her heart had never stopped loving them both. This wasn't just another day in Ethan Montgomery's life. It was the day everything would begin to unravel. Because sometimes, love doesn't stay buried. Sometimes, the truth demands to be known. And sometimes, even a man who doesn't believe in second chances, who has no choice but to take one. Section 1. The Stranger's Secret. The night had fallen like a heavy curtain over the Montgomery estate, swallowing the city's glow in a sea of shadows and silence. Ethan sat in his study, the dim light from his desk lamp casting long reflections on the sleek surface of the mahogany wood. His fingers drummed absent-mindedly against the file in front of him. Her file. Hannah Rose Carter. Age 29. Single. No known relatives. Former primary school teacher. Disappeared from public record for nearly 5 years. There was nothing remarkable about her on paper, nothing that suggested she was different from any of the countless women who'd applied to care for Bon. Yet here she was, already breaking every rule of his household, already unraveling something inside of him he wasn't ready to name. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in." It was Joseph, the house manager, loyal, discreet, and always unnervingly observant. "Bon is asleep." He asked for her again before bed. Ethan's brow furrowed. And she? She sang to him, something soft, a tune I didn't recognize. Joseph hesitated. He hasn't slept that peacefully in months. Silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken questions. "I want to know more about her," Ethan said, voice low. "The agency didn't dig deep enough? Find out where she's been these last 5 years? Everything." Joseph nodded. "Yes, sir." As the door closed behind him, Ethan leaned back, exhaling slowly. He didn't like mysteries, and this woman was a walking one. Down the hall, Hannah stood quietly by the window of her small room, the moonlight tracing her face with silver. Her hands were still, but her heart beat fast. Too fast. She had seen him. Ethan. The man she had once loved beyond reason. And he hadn't recognized her. Of course he hadn't. Not after everything. Not after what they'd done to her. She pressed her fingers to her lips, closing her eyes against the flood of memories. The way he used to hold her, fierce and certain. The promises whispered between sheets and sunrises. The day she told him about the baby, and the night everything fell apart. She'd tried to stay away. She had sworn she would never come near him again, but when she saw Bon's name on the job listing, something inside her broke. She had to see him. Who had to know? And now she was here, a stranger in the house that could have been hers. A stranger to the man who once called her his forever. The next morning, the estate stirred with quiet luxury. Staff moving seamlessly, breakfast prepared, schedules followed. Ethan was already dressed in a charcoal suit, his tie knotted with practiced efficiency, but his mind wasn't on the boardroom. It was on her. As he passed by the sitting room, he stopped. Bon was there, cross-legged on the floor again, laughing. And she was with him, Hannah, her long hair falling gently as she helped Bond with a puzzle, her voice low and melodic. The sight was too natural, too right. "Good morning, Daddy," Bond called without looking up. Ethan stepped inside, arms crossed. "Morning, Bone. We need to talk about your studies. You can't skip tutors forever?" Bond pouted. "I don't like them." "You liked Miss Carter." "She's not a tutor, she's just—" "A babysitter?" Ethan finished, his gaze cutting to Hannah. She looked up then, eyes meeting his, and for a breathless second, something flickered. "Mr. Montgomery," she said, standing, "Bond was just showing me his favorite game. I didn't mean to." "You're not here to play games," he said sharply. "You're here to work." Her jaw tightened, but she nodded. "Of course." Bond stood, fists clenched. "Don't talk to her like that." "Bond," Ethan warned. "No, she's nice. Not like the others. I want her to stay." Ethan's chest tightened, the boy's words cutting deeper than they should. He didn't want to fight. Not now. Not in front of her. "We'll discuss it later," he said, softer now. He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. "Mr. Montgomery," Hannah said quietly, "Bond mentioned he had a doctor's appointment today. Would you like me to take him?" He paused. It was a simple question, one any caretaker might ask, but something in her voice, something in her eyes, made it feel heavier. He nodded. "Fine. Joseph will give you the details." As they left, Ethan returned to his study, pouring himself another coffee he didn't need. His reflection in the glass wall stared back, cold and questioning. Why did she feel so familiar? At the clinic, Hannah held Bond's hand as they waited. The boy was unusually quiet, his little fingers wrapped tightly around hers. "Are you scared?" she asked. He shook his head. "No, I don't like the doctors here. They never listen." She smiled, brushing his hair back. "Then I'll make sure they do." He looked up at her, eyes wide. "You remind me of someone." Her breath caught. "Who?" she whispered. "My mom," he said, so softly. Her throat burned. "What do you remember about her?" He shrugged. "Not much, just Storm, and she used to sing to me." Hannah blinked back the tears. "She loved you very much, Bon." "Do you know her?" he asked suddenly, eyes searching hers. As she faltered, heartbreaking. "I think I do." Later that night, Ethan stood by Bond's door, watching through the cracked opening as Hannah tucked him in. "Good night, Bond," she whispered. "Good night, Mommy." Her eyes widened, but she didn't correct him. She couldn't. And Ethan, standing frozen in the hallway, felt the ground shift beneath him. In Section 2, the night she couldn't hide. The rain came suddenly that night, soft at first, then pounding like the heartbeat Hannah had tried so hard to quiet. She stood alone by the window in the guest room, watching the city lights flicker through streaked glass. Each drop seemed to echo in the hollow space of her chest, louder, harder, reminding her of everything she shouldn't feel. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to see him. She certainly wasn't supposed to still love him. But love had never cared much for rules. A knock. Soft, hesitant. She froze. "Come in," she said, her voice barely holding steady. Joseph stepped in, holding a small envelope. "Miss Carter, this came for you. It was left at the gate, no return address." Her brow furrowed. "For me?" Joseph handed it over with a nod, lingering just long enough to read the confusion on her face before slipping back into the shadows. Hannah stared at the envelope. Her name was scrawled across the front in hurried ink. H. Carter. No one knew she was here. No one. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside, a single photo. Old, faded, but unmistakable. It was Ethan, younger, softer, his arm around her, both of them smiling under the sunflowers in her mother's garden. She hadn't seen this picture in years. Beneath it, a note. Does he remember yet? Her knees buckled. Meanwhile, Ethan stood in his study, staring at the fire that danced behind glass. The house was quiet, too quiet. Bond was asleep. The rain muffled the world outside. But inside? Inside, Ethan couldn't shake her voice. The way she looked at him, the way Bond had called her mommy. He didn't know what disturbed him more, the fact that Bond had said it, or the fact that he hadn't corrected him. His phone buzzed. A message from Joseph. He received a letter. No return. Looked shaken. Ethan's breath caught. Who was this woman? He reached for his coat without thinking, feet moving before reason could catch up. Downstairs, Hannah clutched the photo, her heart pounding louder than the storm outside. She had to leave, now. She couldn't stay here. Not with Ethan. Not with the truth clawing at the edges of everything. She grabbed her coat, her bag, moving fast, silent down the hall. But as she reached for the door, it opened. And there he stood. Ethan. Rain dripping from his coat, his eyes dark, searching. "You're leaving?" he asked, voice low. Her breath hitched. I thought you'd gone out." "I did, but I couldn't stop thinking about you." He stepped closer. "Why are you running?" "I'm not," she started, but the lie cracked in her throat. "Yes, you are." His gaze dropped to the photo in her hand. "What's that?" She tucked it behind her, but it was too late. "Let me see it." "No." His voice softened, almost pleading now. "Let me see." She hesitated. Then, slowly, she held it out. His hands took it, eyes narrowing as he studied the faded image. His jaw clenched. "Where did you get this?" "It was left for me. Tonight." "This isn't possible," he murmured. This is us." "I know." He looked at her, truly looked, and something broke in his eyes. A memory, a shadow, a ghost. "I've seen this before," he whispered. "In a dream, or—" He reached for her, but she stepped back. "No," she choked. "Please, don't." "Hannah, what is this?" His voice cracked. "Who are you?" Tears welled in her eyes. She couldn't say it. "I'm no one," she whispered. "That's not true." "I'm no one," she said again, voice shaking. "Just Bond's nanny." "Don't lie to me," he snapped, stepping forward. "There's more, I know there's more." The room spun, the storm outside now a roar. "You want the truth?" she cried. "Fine, I loved you, once, a long time ago." He froze. "And I left because I had to, because I didn't have a choice." "Well, because your family didn't want me, because they took everything, my name, my child, my life, and they made me disappear." Ethan's face went white. "No." "Yes," she shouted, tears falling now. "You don't remember, Ethan, but you loved me. We had a life until they destroyed it." He shook his head, staggering back. "You're lying." She stepped forward now, closing the space. "Then look at me," she whispered, "and tell me you don't feel it." He couldn't. He reached for her, hands shaking, brushing against her cheek. And suddenly, a flash. Memories not quite clear, but sharp enough to cut. And her laughter. Sunflowers. The night she told him she was pregnant. The crash. And he gasped, pulling away. "I remember," he breathed. "Bits, pieces." She nodded, heartbreaking. "That's all I needed to know." She turned then, walking toward the door. "Hannah, wait." "No," she said softly. "You don't owe me anything." "But I do." She turned back, eyes wide. "Stay," he said, "please." Outside, the rain began to slow. But inside, the storm had only just begun. Because now the secrets were no longer safe. And neither were their hearts. In Section 3, the offer she couldn't accept. The morning after the storm, the world seemed unnaturally still. The Montgomery estate, with all its glass and grandeur, stood silent as the sun rose, casting golden light across floors too polished, too perfect. But in the spaces between memory and reality, between hope and fear, something fragile stirred. Hannah sat at the edge of her bed, the photo clutched tight in her hand. Her mind was still reeling from the night before. Ethan's eyes haunted her, the way they flickered with recognition, like a match struck too soon. He remembered, not everything, but enough. She couldn't stay. Not when every breath near him felt like drowning in a past she could no longer afford. A soft knock. She didn't move. Then the door creaked open, and there he was. No suit today, no mask, just Ethan, shirt sleeves rolled, tie forgotten, and in his hands, 2 mugs of coffee. "I figured you'd be up," he said quietly. She nodded, her throat dry. He set the mug beside her, taking the seat across the room, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "I didn't sleep." "Neither did I." They sat in silence, the kind that ached. "Caller," he began, "I need to know everything. No more pieces, no more guessing." She swallowed hard. "You want the truth?" "Yes." She looked at him, eyes soft but tired. "Then listen. 5 years ago she had walked away from this house with nothing but the clothes on her back and a heart in ruins. Ethan didn't know it, but his father, Charles Montgomery, had made it clear. A choice. Leave, or watch them destroy you. They had accused her of using Ethan, of chasing his wealth. They didn't care that she loved him. They didn't care about the baby. But she had cared. She had tried to fight, tried to stay. Until they threatened her grandfather's life, her family's dignity. They had power, lawyers, money, and she had none. So she made the only choice she could. She disappeared. "They told me you'd moved on," she whispered now, "that you didn't want me, that you believed everything they said." Ethan's hands clenched. "No, I never." "You said you knew about the deal, that you agreed." "I didn't." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't know what to believe, and when I found out about Bon, when I realized they'd lied about him too, it was too late." He stared at her, the weight of her words crashing into him like waves. "They told me he died," she said, voice breaking, "that the baby didn't make it." His breath caught. "I would have come back, Ethan. I would have fought, but they made sure I had nothing to fight for." He stood, pacing, running his hand through his hair. "My father, he did this." "How are you?" In silence. "I'm sorry," he said, barely a whisper. "I didn't come back to punish you," she said softly. "I came for Bon. I didn't even know if I could face you." He turned, eyes burning. "And now?" "Now?" she echoed, her heart aching. "I don't know." Later that afternoon, Ethan stood in his office, overlooking the city. The skyline meant nothing now. Joseph entered, discreet as ever. "Sir, the legal team has prepared the documents." Ethan nodded. "Thank you. And the investigators?" "They've confirmed what Miss Carter said. Everything?" Ethan's jaw clenched. "Good. Have them dig deeper. I want every piece of dirt on my father's involvement." Joseph hesitated. "And Miss Carter?" Ethan turned, his face unreadable. "Send her in." When Hannah entered the office, the sunlight framed her like something out of a memory he couldn't let go. He stood, holding a folder. "I want to make this right," he said. And she frowned. "What is that?" "A contract, one that gives you everything. Money, security, full custody of Bon if you want it." Her breath caught. "And if I don't want it?" He stepped closer. "Then stay. Not for the contract. For us." Her heart twisted. "Keeps. No more secrets. No more fear. I'm not my father. I won't control you." She looked at the folder, then at him. "I don't want your money." "Then what do you want?" She took a shaky breath. "I want my life back. Not the one you think I need, the one I choose." He nodded slowly. Then choose me. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I can't. What? Because I don't know if I can trust you? His hands trembled, but he didn't push. Then let me prove it. That night, Hannah sat alone in the garden, the scent of rain still lingering. Bon was asleep, peaceful, safe. Ethan stood at the edge of the patio, watching her. You never answered, he said. She turned. I know. I meant what I said. I'll wait. She smiled, a sad, soft smile. I'm tired of waiting. He stepped closer. Then stay. I don't know if love is enough anymore. He reached for her hand, holding it gently. It has to be. And in the quiet, under the moonlight, she wondered. Could she trust the man who broke her heart to heal it? Or was this the offer she simply couldn't accept? In Section 4, the day the rain didn't stop. The rain hadn't stopped. For 3 days it poured over the city like the sky itself was mourning. The kind of relentless downpour that soaked into bones, into memories, into the places you thought you'd buried deep enough to forget. Hannah stood beneath the thin shelter of the park's pavilion, her coat clinging to her, hair damp around her face. She held an umbrella, not over herself, but over the 2 little girls at her feet, Bon and a new friend, Dodo, giggling as they splashed in puddles. Bon's laughter rang out, pure and bright, and it broke something inside her. How long had she longed to hear that? How many nights had she cried, wondering if her child was even alive, if he was safe, loved, cared for? Now he was here, real, warm, laughing, and yet she couldn't breathe. Mommy, Bon shouted, running toward her. He didn't even hesitate to call her that anymore, not when they were alone. She knelt, gathering him into her arms. Careful, you'll slip. I'm not afraid, he grinned, cheeks flushed. You'll catch me. Her heart ached. Always, she whispered, kissing his forehead. Behind her, the rain blurred the outline of the man she was trying so hard to resist. Ethan stood, hands in his coat pockets, watching them from distance. The tension in his jaw, the shadow in his eyes, she felt it even before she turned. They hadn't spoken much since that night, the night he offered her everything and she refused. And yet here they were, together, but not. When the children ran off again, chasing imaginary dragons between the trees, Ethan finally stepped closer. You shouldn't have come out in this, he said quietly. She shrugged, eyes on Bon. He needed the air, he's been restless. Basically, so, have I? She glanced at him, then away. You didn't have to follow us. I wasn't going to let you stand in the rain alone. I'm not alone, she said, voice softer than she meant. A pause. The sound of rain filled the space between them. I can't keep pretending, Hannah. She turned to him, the weight of his words crashing down. Spending what? The girl's eyes went wide. I forget. Her breath caught. It's coming back, he said. The pieces, the way you looked at me, the sound of your voice, the day we met, the first time you told me about the baby. Tears welled in her eyes. Why, now, she whispered. I don't know, he admitted. But I need you to know something. He stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat of his presence despite the cold. If I'd known what they did, if I'd known what they took from us, I would have burned it all down. Her chest tightened. You can't change it. No, he agreed, but I can fight now. For what? For us. A loud splash broke their gaze. Bon had fallen. Bon, Hannah cried, running, heart in her throat. He was on the ground, crying, his knee scraped. I'm okay, he whimpered, but the fear in his eyes told another story. She scooped him up, holding him close. Sure, it's all right. Ethan was there in seconds, his hands hovering. Let me see. Hannah hesitated, then nodded. Ethan gently took Bon's leg, inspecting the scrape. It's not deep, he said, voice calm. We'll clean it up. Bond clung to Hannah, but his eyes were on Ethan. Don't leave. I won't, Ethan promised. Not ever. Back at the estate, the rain still beat against the windows as Hannah cleaned Bond's knee. He winced, but didn't cry. You're brave, she said, smiling through the ache in her chest. Like you, he whispered. Ethan stood in the doorway, watching them, something heavy in his hand. When Bond finally drifted to sleep, curled in Hannah's arms, Ethan stepped forward. I found this, he said, holding out a letter. He took it, frowning. It was hidden, behind my mother's things. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. My dearest son, if you are reading this, then I have failed you. There are things I did in the name of legacy, in the name of our family's name, that I can never undo. I separated you from the woman you loved. I lied about her, about the child. I did it because I thought I was protecting you from scandal, from ruin. But all I did was destroy the only true thing you ever had. Forgive me. Your father, Charles. Anna's knees gave out and Ethan caught her before she fell. I didn't know, he whispered. I swear, I didn't. She sobbed, clutching the letter. Why now? Why show me this now? Because it's the truth, and you deserve that much. Later that night, the rain still didn't stop. But for the first time, it didn't matter. Because sometimes the storm is what brings the truth into the light. And sometimes the only way to heal is to walk through it together. Section 5. The memory that wouldn't let go. Ethan hadn't left the hallway outside Bond's room all night. He stood with his back against the cold wall, head tilted back, eyes closed. But sleep never came. The rain had finally stopped, yet the weight in his chest hadn't lifted. If anything, it had only grown heavier, more pressing. That letter, his father's confession, it changed everything. And still, it didn't change enough. Because even though the truth was finally out, the woman he loved, the mother of his child, looked at him like a stranger. A stranger who didn't fight for her when it mattered most. Ethan ran a hand down his face, listening to the quiet hum of the estate. Then a soft voice broke it. And you should try sleeping. He opened his eyes. Hannah stood barefoot, wrapped in one of the house's robes, her hair damp, her eyes impossibly tired. I couldn't, he said. Neither could I. She leaned against the wall beside him, staring at the floor. Bond's okay. He asked about you in his sleep. Ethan smiled faintly. He's stronger than both of us. They stood there for a long moment. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it was just full of the things they hadn't said, the pieces they were still trying to put together. Finally, Hannah spoke. Do you want to know the worst part? He turned to her. I used to beg God every night that you'd come for me, that you'd knock on that door, storm in, and say it was all a lie, that we'd pack our things, take the baby, and go somewhere no one could ever find us. Her voice cracked. But you didn't, I asked. Ethan closed his eyes. Because I didn't know. I know, she whispered, but that didn't stop me from waiting. The next morning, the house stirred gently as the world outside turned soft and golden. Bond was up early, chattering about the weather and asking for pancakes with too much syrup. Ethan watched him from the doorway of the kitchen, marveling at the ease with which Hannah moved around the stove, like she belonged here, like this was their life. He wanted to freeze it. Right here, right now. But life wasn't that kind. Later, when Bond ran off to play with his toys, Ethan found Hannah sitting alone in the sunroom, flipping through an old leather-bound photo album she had found in one of the shelves. I didn't know you still had this, she said without looking up. He crossed the room and sat beside her. The photos were old pre-Bond, pre-heartbreak, just Ethan and Hannah, a different Ethan, the version of himself before boardrooms and betrayals. You kept these? She asked. I couldn't go them away, he said, even when I couldn't remember why they mattered. She turned the page and stopped. It was a picture of the garden. She was barefoot, wearing a white summer dress, holding sunflowers. Ethan was beside her, hand on her belly. "You remembered this one last night," she said. He nodded. "It hit me like a freight train." She looked at him. "And what else?" He hesitated. "I remember the day you left. At least, I think I do. I was standing in the driveway, yelling. You were crying. My father pulled me back inside. I thought I was dreaming, but now I know." He looked at her then, something raw behind his eyes. "You didn't just leave. You were taken from me." Tears slid silently down her cheek. "I wanted to come back," she whispered, "but they made sure I couldn't. Every letter I wrote was returned. Every call went unanswered. After a while I thought maybe you didn't want to hear from me." "I did," he said fiercely. "I always did." That afternoon, Hannah found herself in the old greenhouse behind the estate, the one that had once been her favorite place to hide. It had been abandoned for years, vines curling through broken windows, dust thick in the air. But something about it felt safe. She sat on a cracked bench, sun cutting through the glass above, warming her face. In her hand was a small locket, one she'd worn when she was pregnant. Inside it, a faded ultrasound and a single pressed sunflower petal. Ethan found her there. He didn't say anything at first, just sat beside her. "I never knew about the locket," he said. "I wore it every day," she said, "until I couldn't anymore." He reached out, gently brushing her hand. "Hannah, I don't know what's ahead. I don't even know if I deserve a second chance." "You don't," she said quietly, "but neither do I." They sat in silence, shoulder to shoulder, two people who had been broken by the same lie, trying to remember how to trust. And then she asked, "Do you ever wonder what it would have been like if none of this had happened?" He turned to her. "All the time." That night, Ethan dreamed again. But this time, it wasn't fragmented. He saw her, in the hospital, screaming his name, blood on the floor, his father pulling him away, the echo of a baby's first cry, and then, silence. He woke with a jolt, drenched in sweat. And for the first time, he remembered everything. He found her on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the stars. "I remember," he said. She turned slowly. "All of it," he whispered. "The baby, the day you left, the last thing you said." Her eyes shimmered. "What did I say?" He stepped closer. "You said, if you love me, don't forget me." She stared at him, tears spilling. "And I didn't," he said, voice shaking. "I just didn't know." She dropped the blanket and stepped into his arms, burying her face in his chest. "I never stopped," she sobbed. "Neither did I." And in that moment, under the stars above the city, they didn't need to speak, because the memory that haunted them had finally led them back to the truth. Not the pain, not the betrayal, but the love that refused to let go. Section 6. The photo, the press, and the price of truth. It was a perfect morning. Or it should have been. Sunlight streamed through the grand windows of the Montgomery estate, casting golden lines across the marble floors. In the kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee mingled with laughter. Bonds light and carefree. Hannah was by the stove, humming softly, flipping pancakes just the way he liked. For a moment, Ethan stood in the doorway, just watching. This could be their life. But perfect moments don't last. Not when the world is watching. His phone buzzed. At first he ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again. Reluctantly, Ethan glanced at the screen. 15 missed calls. 4 urgent emails. Subject, the story's out. His heart dropped. In the boardroom downtown, chaos reigned. The Montgomery name was trending everywhere. Not because of a new acquisition, not because of a corporate victory, but because of her. The headline blared across every major site. Secret son of billionaire CEO, the hidden mother revealed. And beneath it, a photo. Grainy but clear enough. Hannah, holding Bond's hand outside the estate, smiling. Back at the house, Ethan's hands trembled as he tossed the phone onto the counter. Hannah asked, turning. His face was pale. 14 hours later. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached for the remote, flipping on the TV. The screen filled with their faces. Her face. This morning, the world was stunned to learn of the secret child of Ethan Montgomery, CEO of Montgomery Enterprises, the reporter said. Speculation swirls around the identity of the boy's mother, now believed to be former school teacher Hannah Rose Carter, who has been living at the Montgomery estate. Hannah's breath caught. "No," she whispered. Vaughn looked between them, confused. "Mommy?" She turned, kneeling. "Vaughn, sweetheart, why don't you go upstairs for a little while?" Please," Ethan said, softer now. Vaughn hesitated, then nodded, running off. The room was silent. Ethan turned to her, eyes heavy with guilt. "I'm sorry." Her voice shook. "How did they find out?" "I don't know." Tears welled in her eyes, panic rising. "They'll never leave us alone now. I'll fix it." "Ethan, this is everywhere." He stepped forward, reaching for her, but she pulled away. "No, this is what I was afraid of. This is why I didn't want." Her voice broke. "I can't do this. I won't be some scandal." "You're not." "But that's all they'll see," she cried. "The poor girl who tracked the billionaire, the secret, the lies. Then let's tell them the truth." She stared at him. "Let's end it. No more hiding. No more shame." His voice was steady now. "We hold a press conference. We tell them everything. About my father, about what they did, about us." Her heart pounded. "You can't? Your company?" "Damn the company," he said. "You and Bon are more important." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I don't know if I'm strong enough," she whispered. "You don't have to be," he said, pulling her close. "Not alone." Later that day, the estate was surrounded. Cameras, reporters, helicopters. The world wanted a show. But what they got was the truth. Inside the grand hall, Ethan stood before the press. Cameras flashed, microphones thrust forward. Hannah stood just behind him, holding Bon's hand. Ethan's voice echoed. "For years, I believed I had lost the woman I loved and the child we created. Because of lies, because of power." He looked at Hannah. "But love doesn't die. Not real love." He turned back to the crowd. "This is Hannah Rose Carter, the mother of my son, and today we are not hiding." Questions exploded. "Did you know about the child? Was this a cover-up? Will you resign?" Ethan raised a hand. "We have nothing more to say." And then they walked out. Back inside, Hannah sank onto the couch, shaking. "I can't believe we did that." Ethan sat beside her, taking her hand. "They can't hurt us now." But just as she began to breathe again, Joseph rushed in. Spectum shrugged. "There's more." "What?" He handed Ethan a tablet. "A video. Leaked." Ethan pressed play. And there it was. Surveillance footage. And father, handing Hannah money. A contract. Her leaving the estate, pregnant. Hannah gasped. "Who's twisted?" she whispered. "No," Ethan said, jaw tight. "I won't let them." "But it looks." "I don't care how it looks. I care about the truth." She turned to him, eyes full of fear. "What's the price, Ethan? What do we lose next?" He cupped her face, fierce and certain. "Nothing, not this time." But outside, the world wasn't done. The photo was just the beginning. And the price of truth was everything. Section 7. The Man Who Wouldn't Let Go. The storm outside had nothing on the one brewing inside Ethan Montgomery's boardroom. Less than 24 hours after the press conference, half the shareholders were calling for his resignation. Stock prices dipped, headlines screamed scandal, and in every backroom and corridor of Montgomery Enterprises, whispers multiplied like wildfire. But none of that compared to what walked through his office doors that afternoon. Lennox Vale. Charming, vicious, and the one man Hannah had never wanted Ethan to meet. He wasn't part of the Montgomery circle. He didn't have a seat on the board, but he had something more dangerous. Mystery. Lennox, Ethan said, standing slowly behind his desk. Didn't expect to see you. Lennox smiled like a wolf in designer wool. Didn't expect to be called, Ethan, but you should know, when Hannah's name goes public, I pay attention. He sat, uninvited. It's been a long time. Ethan's jaw clenched. Not long enough. 3 years ago, when Hannah was gone, broken, trying to survive, Lennox Vale had been the one who gave her a job, gave her shelter, gave her attention. He didn't pretend to be a savior, and he never claimed to love her. But he wanted her. And when she wouldn't give him what he wanted, and he never forgot it. I came to make you an offer, Lennox said, lounging like he owned the room. Take her out of the spotlight, disappear, start over somewhere else. Or I will. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Is that a threat? It's a favor, Lennox replied, smooth. You're bleeding. This company's on the verge of collapse. You've already dragged her name through the mud once. Do you really want to do it again? Ethan didn't answer. Spectacly so. Lennox leaned forward. Or maybe I should ask her. She was mine before she was yours, wasn't she? That was when Ethan's fist met his jaw. Hannah rushed into the office minutes later to find Joseph trying to pry Ethan off Lennox, blood on both their shirts, security piling in. What the hell is going on? Lennox, smug despite the split lip, straightened his collar. Tell your fiancé, sweetheart. If he won't do what's right, I will. Leave, she said coldly. Gladly, he smirked. But you should ask yourself why someone like me still cares so much. Or maybe, why he cares this much. And then he left. That night the house was silent. Ethan sat in the study, staring into the fire, scotch untouched on the table. Hannah stood behind him, arms folded, voice low. Why didn't you tell me he came? I didn't want to bring him into this. He already is. He looked up at her, the weight of the past in his eyes. Did you ever care for him? No, she said without hesitation. But he was there when you weren't, and for a long time I hated you for that. Ethan nodded slowly. He's going to come after us. Then let him, she whispered. Let him see what love looks like when it doesn't give up. But the damage had already begun. That night, an anonymous post flooded social media. Who really is Hannah Carter? Attached was a forged document, a falsified paternity test claiming Ethan wasn't Bond's father. It trended for 10 hours before it was taken down. But the doubt had been planted. In the days that followed, everything escalated. Boardroom rebellions, anonymous tips to child services, paparazzi outside Bond's preschool. Hannah barely left the house. Ethan slept with one eye open. And Lennox? He kept showing up. Outside her charity event, at Bond's pediatrician office, once, parked outside the house, engine running. He never said a word, just smiled. Finally, Hannah confronted him. It was raining again, always raining it seemed, when she found him outside the cafe near her old apartment. You're sick, she said, voice shaking. I'm in love, he replied calmly. No, you're obsessed. I gave you everything, he said, standing. When the world forgot you, I remembered. I never loved you, Lennox. But you could have, he said, And you still can. One call, Hannah. You and Bon, I'll take care of everything. He'll never hurt you again. She took a step back. Ethan never hurt me. But you're trying to own me? His smile faltered. And for the first time, she saw it. And the cruelty, the fracture. He wasn't in love with her. He was in love with the power of having her. Later that night, she sat on the floor of Bon's room, watching him sleep, while Ethan knelt beside her. I'm scared, she whispered. He reached for her hand. So am I. But I don't want to run this time. He squeezed gently. Then let's stay and fight. The next morning, the final blow landed. And a video. Leaked. Security footage from the estate. It showed Ethan and Hannah kissing, laughing, but cut together with audio from the paternity test leak, from the contract years ago, from Ethan's father's confession, edited to make it sound like Hannah had used Ethan for money. It spread like wildfire. They were sitting in silence, holding hands, when Joseph walked in. I have something, he said. Ethan asked. Joseph placed a file on the table. Proof of who leaked it, who forged the documents, who sent the original photo to the press. Ethan opened it. I saw the name, and his face went still. Lennox Vale. This ends now, Ethan said. Session 8. The confrontation, the crash, and the call that changed everything. The sky was burning gold as the sun dipped low over the city skyline. But inside Ethan Montgomery, there was no light, only fire. The file Joseph had given him lay open on his desk, its contents screaming one undeniable truth. Lennox Vale was behind everything. The leaked photo, the fake paternity test, the doctored video. The man had crossed a line Ethan never thought he'd see again. This wasn't just about power or pride anymore. It was about Hannah. It was about Bon. And it was about justice. Where are you going? Hannah asked, breathless, as she found Ethan grabbing his coat, keys already in hand. To end this, he said. She blocked the door, eyes wide, fear raw in her voice. No, not like this. I have to. Then I'm coming with you. They found him at the old waterfront warehouse, a place Ethan remembered from another life, when deals were made with handshakes and threats. Lennox was waiting. Of course he was. He stood by the edge of the dock, watching the water as if it could cleanse what he'd done. You brought her, he said without turning. Ethan stepped forward, fists clenched. You dragged her into this. Now you face me. Lennox turned, a smile playing at the edges of his mouth. I thought you'd come. Hannah moved between them. Stop this, both of you. But they weren't listening. Not now. You lied, Ethan said, voice low and dangerous. You manipulated everything. I gave you a way out, Lennox countered, and you're too blind to see it. You tried to destroy her. I loved her, Lennox shouted. I was there when you left her behind. You were there, because you wanted to own her. Lennox's face twisted. She deserved better than you. And you think you're better? Pause. Lennox said finally, but at least I never forgot her. Suddenly, the world tilted. Lennox lunged. There was no time. A fist connected, Ethan's or Lennox's. Neither would remember later. The dock shook beneath them as they crashed into the wood, grappling, rage exploding in every punch, every curse. And Hannah screamed, trying to pull them apart. But it was too late. Lennox shoved Ethan back, hard. Ethan staggered. Lost his footing. Fell. The splash echoed like a gunshot. Ethics, Hannah cried, running to the edge. He didn't surface. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. Then she dove. The water was ice, pulling her under, dragging her down into blackness. But she could see him, just out of reach, sinking. She kicked, arms flailing, lungs burning. Not like this. Not now. Her fingers brushed his coat. She grabbed hold. He was heavy, too heavy. But she didn't let go. Hands grabbed her. He hauled them both out, collapsing onto the dock, coughing, choking, gasping for air. Ethan's chest heaved. Alive. Barely. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police, paramedics. Lennox stood at the edge, drenched, watching. And for the first time, his mask cracked. "What have I done?" he murmured. Joseph stepped forward, holding the file. "You're finished." Later, at the hospital, Ethan lay in a white bed, monitors beeping softly. Hannah sat beside him, her hand wrapped around his. "You saved me," he whispered. "You weren't allowed to leave me, not again." A tear slid down her cheek. "And I can't lose you." "You won't." Her phone buzzed. A private number. He almost didn't answer. "Hello." A pause. Then a voice she hadn't heard in years. "Hannah, it's your mother." Her breath caught. "You're alive." "Yes, and there's something you need to know. About the night you left. About Bon." Her world spun. Section 9. The mother, the memory, and the moment of truth. "Hannah, are you still there?" Her mother's voice crackled over the line, familiar and strange all at once, like a ghost she'd never expected to hear again. "And I thought you were dead." A pause. "I know," her mother said softly. "That's what they wanted you to believe." The hospital hallway seemed to spin as Hannah clutched the phone, her other hand pressed against the cold wall. Ethan was resting inside, alive, thanks to her, but now the past was knocking with a vengeance. Her mother had been gone for 5 years. Vanished, no calls, no letters, no trace. And now, out of nowhere... "Where are you?" Hannah demanded. "I'm in town, I need to see you. There's something you don't know. About Bon. About why they made you leave." Her breath hitched. "You were there that night?" "I tried to stop them. I tried to protect you." Tears blurred her vision. "Please," her mother pleaded. "Come, before it's too late." She didn't tell Ethan. Not yet. He needed to rest, to heal. She left a note, kissed Bon's forehead as he napped in the hospital room, and slipped out into the cold, gray afternoon. The meeting place was an old cafe by the river, one they used to visit when life was simpler, when love was just laughter and long walks home. Her mother was already there, sitting by the window, hands wrapped around a cup of tea, eyes red-rimmed but alert. Hannah froze in the doorway. It was her, older, thinner, but her. "Mom?" Her mother stood slowly, tears spilling. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. They sat for hours. And with every word, Hannah's world cracked. 5 years ago, when Charles Montgomery discovered she was pregnant, he didn't just threaten her, he threatened her family, her grandfather's medical bills, her father's business, even her mother's safety. But it wasn't just Charles. It was her own father. He had taken money, bribes, to stay quiet, to keep her in the dark, to push her away from Ethan, from Bon. Her mother had tried to stop it. But when she refused to play along, he made her disappear. Not dead. "I thought you hated me," Hannah whispered, hands shaking. "I thought you abandoned me." "I would never," her mother sobbed. "I've been trying to get back to you ever since." "And Bon." Her mother reached into her bag, pulling out a folded paper. "A real paternity test. I found this. It proves everything. Ethan is his father, and Charles knew. He just didn't care." Later, as the sun dipped low, Hannah stood alone by the river, the paper in her hand. She had the truth now. But what would it cost? Back at the hospital, Ethan was awake, sitting up in bed, Bond curled beside him. "You left," he said softly when she walked in. "I had to." She crossed the room, sat beside him, took his hand. "My mother's alive." His eyes widened. "And she told me everything." She handed him the test. His hands shook as he read it. "I never doubted," he whispered, "but now we can end this." She nodded. "We have one more battle." That night they sat together planning, for once, not as broken lovers, but as a family. Because the moment of truth had come, and they were ready. Section 10. The courtroom, the confession, and the choice that set them free. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, shareholders, former allies turned enemies, each face more eager than the next to witness the fall of Ethan Montgomery. But Ethan wasn't here to fall. He was here to fight. And by his side, unwavering, was Hannah. No more hiding. No more fear. Today the world would see the truth, not just about the Montgomery Empire, but about the love that refused to be destroyed. The judge entered. And rise. Hannah squeezed Ethan's hand as they stood. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her gaze didn't waver. They had prepared for this. Every document, every piece of evidence, every scar they had carried was now a weapon, not of vengeance, but of justice. The opposing counsel wasted no time. "Mr. Montgomery, isn't it true that your company's value has plummeted due to personal scandals involving Miss Carter?" Ethan's voice was calm, steady. "My company's value is not my legacy. They are." He gestured to Hannah and Bon, who sat quietly, with Joseph nearby. "Mr. Carter is not a scandal. She's the mother of my child, and the woman my father tried to erase from my life." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. "Objection," barked the opposing lawyer. "Irrelevant." "Overruled," the judge said, eyes narrowing. "Continue." Ethan stood, holding up the letter, his father's confession. "This is the truth. My father, Charles Montgomery, manipulated my life, forged documents, paid bribes, and destroyed lives to protect his image. He lied about the paternity of my son. He drove Hannah away under threat." He handed the letter to the judge. "I refuse to let his sins define me." Then it was Hannah's turn. She stepped forward, hands trembling but voice strong. "Fears. I lived in fear. Fear of losing my child, fear of being seen as a liar, a gold digger, a mistake, but I am none of those things." She looked at Ethan. "I loved him. I still do." And then to the court. "All I ever wanted was the chance to live my truth, to raise my son in peace, and I won't let anyone take that from me again." The room was silent. Then Joseph stood. "And I one more piece of evidence." He handed the judge a video. Surveillance footage of Lennox Vale, meeting with Charles Montgomery, taking payment, agreeing to keep Hannah in line if she ever resurfaced. It was dated just weeks before Charles's death. The judge's face hardened. "I've seen enough." In the end, the ruling was swift. Ethan would retain control of Montgomery Enterprises. Lennox Vale was arrested on charges of blackmail, conspiracy, and fraud. The paternity test was declared legitimate. And Hannah, she was free. Outside, the cameras flashed, questions flying like bullets. But Ethan didn't stop. He turned to Hannah in front of the world and dropped to one knee. "I don't care about the company, the name, or the legacy. I care about you, about Bon, about us." He opened a small velvet box. "I lost you once. I won't make that mistake again." Hannah Rose Carter, "Will you marry me?" Her eyes filled with tears. The world seemed to fade. Future whispered. He slipped the ring on her finger, stood, and kissed her as the crowd erupted. Later, back at the estate, with Bon asleep upstairs and the house finally quiet, they stood together in the garden. The place where it had all begun. "I can't believe it's over," Hannah said. "It's not over," Ethan smiled. "It's just beginning." She leaned into him, the night warm and still. "We're free now," she whispered. And he kissed her again, softly, like a promise. Because love, real love, never gives up. And sometimes it takes losing everything to find what truly matters. When love writes its own ending. The house was quiet now. No cameras, no reporters, no more shadows lurking in the corners of their lives. Just them. Hannah stood in the garden, the early morning sun kissing the petals of freshly planted sunflowers, their favorite. Behind her, the mansion that once held secrets now held something else. Peace. She heard the soft footsteps before she felt his arms wrap around her waist. Subconsciously, Ethan whispered, resting his chin on her shoulder. She shook her head, smiling. "I didn't want to waste a single minute of this." "This?" he teased gently. "This life," she replied, turning to face him. "Ours?" Inside, Bon was giggling over a bowl of cereal, already dressed for his first day at the new school. No more hiding, no more whispered threats. Just a little boy, free to be nothing more and nothing less than loved. They had made choices, impossible ones. They had lost things they could never get back. Time, innocence, trust in the world. But in the ruins, they had built something stronger. A family. Not perfect, not polished, but real. Later that evening, surrounded by close friends, they held a small ceremony in the garden. No press, no spectacle, just vows. Ethan took her hands, his voice steady. "I once believed legacy was everything, that power, wealth, control could fill the emptiness. But then I lost you and I realized none of that matters. You, Hannah, and Bon, you are my legacy." Tears filled her eyes. "And I vow," he continued, "to never let fear, pride, or the past steal another moment from us." Hannah smiled through the tears, squeezing his hands. "I once thought love had to be perfect, that it had to be easy, but now I know real love is messy, it's hard, but it's worth everything. I choose you, Ethan, I choose us." Again and again. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, Bon ran up, laughing, wrapping his arms around both of them. "Now we're really a family," he said. Ethan lifted him up. "We always were, buddy, we always were." And when the stars came out, they danced. No music, just hearts in sync. Because in a world that tried to break them, they had written their own ending. Not with power. Not with revenge. But with love. To anyone who has ever been told they are not enough. To anyone who has ever been broken by lies, by fear, by the weight of the past. And know this. Love is not about perfection. It's about fighting. It's about forgiving. It's about choosing each other, even when the world says you shouldn't. This story was for you. Because love, real love, always finds its way back. Did this story touch your heart? Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in Hannah's place? Subscribe for more stories of love, loss, and second chances. It's never too late to believe in love again.
Thank you for watching today's Billionaire Love Stories. Every love story is a journey, filled with passion, heartbreak, sacrifice, and life-changing moments. Here at Billionaire Love Stories, we bring you the most unforgettable tales of love, power, and destiny, where hearts defy expectations and find their true match against all odds. If this story touched your heart, don't forget, like to support more incredible billionaire romances. Comment your thoughts. Can love truly overcome power and ambition? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next gripping love story. Billionaire Love Stories. Because love isn't about riches. It's about fate. Because love isn't about money. It's about the heart. See you in the next story.